The absurd life of Grady Stiles Jr. has fascinated and shocked audiences all around the globe. The guy known as Lobster Boy held fleeting fame during the mid-1900s before falling into a world of crime. What led a circus performer to become a cold-blooded killer? And how did Lobster Boy get his unique hands?
I did not break the law.
You sabotaged my ass, society.
What do you want to call me a murderer for? I've never killed anyone.
Grady Stiles Jr. was born June 26 of 1937 as the fourth child to Grady Stiles Sr. and Edna Stiles. Right away, doctors could see Grady was different. Grady Jr.'s strange hands would be with him for his entire life and would shape his future in ways no one could have expected. According to his dad, Grady Stiles Sr., the Stiles family had a long history of babies born with this and similar looking extremities. Records apparently date back almost 100 years to 1840. Grady's hands resembled claws more than hands, and the condition impacted his feet as well. In spite of his condition, Grady could have led a normal life, but his parents had different plans. Grady Stiles Jr. was born into a family of circus performers. But they didn't do every act. Instead, they specialized in the freak show. The Stiles family kept having more children with abnormal limbs and eventually formed a circus called the Lobster. This iteration of the Lobster family got their start in Pittsburgh and soon became a main attraction for carnivals for decades as the family traveled with their circus act across the country. That's when Grady Stiles Jr. became known as the Lobster Boy. Although Lobster Boy is known for his claw-like hands, his rare medical condition also impacted his feet, making him unable to walk. Lobster Boy commuted on a wheelchair and sometimes crawled on his hands. His unique hands made crawling exceptionally difficult, and coupled with the arm movements required to move his wheelchair, Lobster Boy gained some serious upper body strength. Alongside his freak show appearance, Lobster Boy became known for his strength, well, at least at home. Over the years, the Lobster family would tour with the circus and spend their off-season in Gibsonston, Florida, a place where many carnies would call home. Together, the Lobster family pulled in some serious money back in the day. They would make anywhere from $50,000 to $8,000 a year. That's almost $1 million by today's standards. Plus, their condition was easier to conceal, meaning they were able to live pretty plush lives free from the stigma that many of their freak show co-workers faced. Adding to Lobster Boy's success, he met a fellow carny named Mary, or Maria Teresa, and fell in love. Mary was a runaway who left home when she was still a teenager to join the circus and stuck with the gig ever since. Mary wasn't part of the freak show. Instead, she worked as a staff member, but she accepted Lobster Boy for his appearance, and the two fell in love, eventually marrying. Together, Mary and Grady Stiles Jr. had 2 children of their own, Kathy and Donna. Kathy was born with no deformities, while Donna was born with the same medical condition of her father. Even though Stiles seemingly had it all, money, a woman he loved, a stable job, a house, and a family, he wasn't satisfied. Lobster Boy began drowning his sorrows with liquor. His alcoholism continued to worsen as his children moved into their teens, and the more he drank, the more violent he became. Lobster Boy began abusing his family both mentally and physically. Even though he spent a good deal of time in a wheelchair, he was incredibly strong and would use his strength to hurt his loved ones. On occasions, he would use his claws to choke her. Because of her normal appearance, Lobster Boy also began to favor Kathy over Donna, furthering the rift in the family, but none were safe from the Lobster Boy's wrath. Donna eventually fell in love with the young man, but Lobster Boy disapproved. Donna tried to fight back and even planned to marry her lover. The night before the wedding tragedy struck the bride-to-be, Lobster Boy talked with the groom and told him he wanted to make peace. Accounts of the nights vary. Some say Lobster Boy went out to meet the man, others say he invited him over. But either way, the result was the same. Lobster Boy grabbed his shotgun and murdered Donna's fiancé on the spot. Lobster Boy didn't hide. He went straight to trial and confessed openly. He didn't feel the slightest remorse for killing another human. In spite of his blatant crime, Lobster Boy was only tried for third-degree murder, most likely due to his intoxication. Much to the dismay of his daughter, he wasn't even sentenced to jail. Lobster Boy escaped jail because no prisons in the area could care for someone with his deformities. So, he was given arrest and 15 years of probation. In response to his murder, his wife left him. But in somewhat of a silver lining, as part of his rehabilitation, Stiles Jr. stopped drinking. When he finished his sentence, he even got back together with Mary, and things seemed to be picking up for Lobster Boy. But those calm waters didn't last long. Something about his wife and family triggered something dark in Lobster Boy, and he went right back to the bottle shortly after reuniting with Mary. Shockingly, he was even more abusive the second time around. That's when Mary and her son from a prior marriage, Harry Glenn Newman Jr., conspired to get revenge on Lobster Boy. Together, the mother and son duo hired a 17-year-old sideshow performer named Chris Wyant to kill Lobster Boy. The price for the hit job? Just $300. They didn't have to offer him much. Lobster Boy was despised by his community and neighborhood so much that they might have been able to hire him for free. Chris Wyant entered Lobster Boy's home and shot him twice in the head with a semi-automatic pistol. Wyant was sentenced for 27 years. Mary got 43 years. And Harry, the mastermind behind the hit, was sentenced for life. The boy who traveled the country and became a headline that people clamored to see was reduced to a corpse in an empty church. Only 10 people came to his funeral, and no one would serve as a pallbearer. So why did Lobster Boy have such strange hands? It turns out he was born with a birth condition called ectrodactylism, where abnormal development of the hands and feet causes digits, like fingers and toes, to be missing or fused. There are 6 different subtypes of the condition, and it's very rare, appearing in roughly 1 in every 100,000 births. And it's genetic, meaning the Stiles family was afflicted with ectrodactyly for over 100 years to fuel the Lobster family's legacy. In modern medicine, some treatment and surgeries can improve function of fused fingers or toes, but in some cases, medical intervention is purely cosmetic. But cosmetic correction for this condition can't be understated. There are thousands of medical conditions leading to abnormal appearances. So why does Lobster Boy seem to strike us so strongly? Researchers believe ectrodactyly of the hands can be so jarring because we humans use our hands for non-verbal communication. Maybe you're someone who talks with their hands, or you use sign language to communicate. Whether our hand gestures are intentional or subconscious, our hands communicate all the time. Over our evolution, hands have been important symbols in culture and art. There's a sort of unspoken recognition that our opposable thumbs are some of our most important and immediately recognizable traits. Throughout history, losing hands has been synonymous with losing humanity. Villains like Jaime Lannister and Anakin Skywalker lost their hands in moments that shaped them. While there is some redemption in Jaime's case, this moment further separates him from his peers, while Anakin's loss begins his reign of terror and completely disregard for human life. While Anakin's loss began his reign of terror in complete disregard for human life. Maybe lacking regular hands angered Grady, coupled with the stigma and ridicule he must have faced constantly throughout his life. Perhaps Lobster Boy couldn't accept himself. While many carnival workers have been able to accept their unique features and live meaningful lives, Lobster Boy, like the villains of our stories, drifted beyond all hope.